Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. I hope you are all happy and healthy, doing the things you love. It's your Tottenham update, your transfer news, views, and clues. We've got a couple of stories for you. We've actually got, I'm going to say 4 stories, but I'm going to rattle through 2 of them quickly because I don't think there's too much truth to them. But if they're out there in the zeitgeist, I have to let you know about them. And then I'm going to get a bit more detailed on the other 2 because I think they're a bit more viable, and the noise around why it's coming up again is kind of interesting as well. Before we get into it, guys, as always, if you don't mind hitting the like button for me on the video, I'd really appreciate it. I asked you on the last video to see if you could get me to 500 likes. You hit it out of the park. For a video that had less views than some of the sort of normal transfer updates, it shouldn't have got to 500 likes, but it got to nearly 900. So you absolutely smashed it for me. Couldn't have been more grateful. Hit the subscribe if you haven't already. We're nearly at 23.6k. Hit the notification bell and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's topics. First 2 stories are Marcus Rashford to Tottenham. It's been knocked around by court offside. It's the genesis of the story comes from Fichaches, which, unless they're talking about Spanish players, then usually it's just made up stuff. And Tottenham are keeping tabs on 80 million euro rated player Marcus Rashford. I just don't see this one happening. I think the guy's too expensive. I think his salary is insane. It's like 350 grand a week. I just don't think his performances this year have really justified that valuation. In fact, since he signed his contract, I don't think he's really been at his best. Also, there's a lot of things going on off the pitch with him. Like, is there a bit of a distraction? He seems like he's not quite fully focused on Manchester United, or at least Erik ten Hag's version of United. And so, I don't know whether that's a short thing or a long-term thing. But in any event, I just think there's too much risk in the kind of opportunity cost, and whether you're getting value for money, I'm not sure. I don't think Tottenham would ever pay that salary. I don't think many clubs would. There's links that he's going to go to Bayern Munich or to Paris Saint-Germain. Those 2 are maybe more plausible in terms of affordability. But are they going to pay top dollar for a guy who comes with an English brand and maybe the kind of homegrown thing? Are you going to pay English tax if you're French or a German club? Of course not. It doesn't make sense. So for me, I don't see an easy transfer for him in any event. What I would say is that Manchester United are kind of lumped in here with a long contract. And so I'd rather let him sort of struggle a little bit at United because of the impending pivot from loss-based accounting practices for PSR to squad cost ratios, which we'll talk about on a different video, which has been approved in essence. Then, Manchester United have got a bit of a kind of a noose around their neck with the Rashford contract. And so, who's going to take him off their hands and pay for top dollar for him? He's under no requirement to just move because Man United don't want to pay it anymore. And I don't think he'll get the same salary anywhere else. So it will be an interesting one. But anyway, to Tottenham, I don't think it's happening. Next story, Sudokov, the Ukrainian player. His agent was seen at Tottenham Hotspur in the stadium this week before the Arsenal game, similar to the agent's story that we're going to talk about next for Santiago Gimenez and Geertruida, the Feyenoord players. The agents and the players were at the stadium for those 2, but for Sudokov, the agent was at Tottenham and was pictured at the stadium. Now, I don't know whether there's 2 and 2 equals 4 on that one, or whether the agent was just at the game trying to take a picture from the first row, looked like he was pitch side to try to create some FOMO or some sort of narrative around the player. But this is not the first time we've been linked to Sudokov. I did a video about him about 2 weeks ago. And like I said, that he's an interesting player. It's difficult to gauge the Ukrainian league. When I've watched him, they were calling him the kind of Ukrainian Eriksen, the next Christian Eriksen, because he's slight of frame, blonde hair, kind of doesn't look too dissimilar, very good passing range, amazing kind of player, an intelligent player. But, that's for me, you could, if you're looking for a new way to describe a fair-haired, thinly built, technically gifted player who plays in the midfield, then you can kind of insert any name there if you like, if you want to be that, play that next this or that game. For me, I just think the story is nonsense because I just don't see, as I said at the time, any logic to the notion that the Shakhtar Donetsk CEO would want to deal with Daniel Levy. He's still salty that Daniel Levy didn't offer anything more than a derisory amount in compensation for the Manuel Solomon deal. Not that Daniel Levy has to do anything anyway. He took advantage of the FIFA rule that allows players who are foreign players playing in a country for a club that are at war to tear their contract up and move on a free transfer. That's not Daniel Levy's fault, and it's not Shakhtar's fault either. But FIFA put the rule in place, and they didn't embed a mandate for compensation. And so why Daniel Levy has to take care of Shakhtar Donetsk, as much as I feel empathetic and sympathetic towards Shakhtar's cause, it's not their fault. I think that FIFA should be the people that should retrospectively embed a mandate into the law going forward. And in terms of sorting out Shakhtar, then maybe FIFA should put their hand in their deep pockets and pay some compensation. Tottenham did go as far as to offer them a friendly, in the last season's, at the start of this pre-season, and I'm sure they made some money out of that. And apparently Daniel Levy did offer something, but in Shakhtar Donetsk CEO's eyes, it was derisory in value, and so he's not happy. Why, on that basis, if you think that Daniel Levy is doing the dirty, why would you negotiate in good faith for Sudokov? I don't see it happening, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. But for what it's worth, he is an interesting, good player. But again, I don't know how to value or to judge the kind of step up in level. I don't know. Could be awesome, could be a flop. Sorry, not that educated on Ukrainian football. The last two stories, I'm going to bake it into one, but I'm going to go in a bit more detail for you guys, is, of course, Santiago Gimenez and his teammate, Geertruida, were both at Tottenham, Arsenal. And, of course, the rumours are like, well, why? Now, the Santiago Gimenez links go back forever. I must have done 10 videos on Santiago Gimenez on the channel. I think he's a really, really talented player. We're going to look at his stats in a second. I think he scored 21 goals and 5 assists in 26 games this season. Let me get the story up for you. This is the story, first of all. It's from Football London, and it says that, what am I doing here? Here we go. Santiago Gimenez spotted at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as Spurs battle Arsenal for the £39 million transfer. So we were battling Arsenal on the pitch, but apparently we're battling them off it. Both teams are looking for a striker. For me, Santiago Gimenez is a player I've spoken to you guys about for ages. I really do value this player's ability. Mexican international. I think they're built different in Mexico. I do think he can make the transition up. Look, not blessed with pace, but has not slow, but has a wonderful ability to kind of dribble and just sort of use his body weight to shield his close control from defenders at the Dutch level, in the Dutch league level. You know, a lot of Harry Kane similarities. Strong with his left foot, strong with his right foot, good in the air. That you'll see in the stats in a minute that his passing doesn't look good, but I promise you it is when he does come deep in the final system to pick the ball up, which isn't that often because of the way Feyenoord play. So you always have to bake in the context of the level. You know, will he make the transition from Dutch football to the Premier League? And also, when you're looking at the stats, if there's areas that look good or bad, are those stats weighted in a certain way because of the team that he's playing for and the way that they play and who they're playing against? So you have to bake that stuff in. And when it comes to Santiago Gimenez, look, this season, what did I say? 29 games he's played for Feyenoord, 21 goals and 5 assists. If you do look, though, it is worth pointing out that the start of the season for him was unbelievable. A goal in his second game, a brace in the third and fourth, then a single, but an assist, then a hat-trick and an assist, then a single, then a brace, then a single and an assist. So in the opening 9 games, he scored 10, 12, 13. I think that's 13 goals in the first 9 games and 3 assists. Then he has a breather, scores another hat-trick, then a couple more on the bounce, then an assist, then another one. Then around January, or late January, early February, I think he got a calf injury. It does say he got a calf injury here, but he only missed that 1 game. He was back in the next game, but he's gone on a bit of a kind of dry spell. The last 10 games, he's only scored 2 and got 1 assist. And from what I've read and been reading, I think he might be playing a little bit injured, carrying that knock. I don't think he missed very much football, but I think he's still playing, but he's not quite at it in the second half of the season. So you have to bake that in. What's happening there? Why has he gone off the boil a little bit? Feyenoord are doing really well in the Eredivisie. Is he a flash in the pan? Well, no. Like last season, he was unbelievable. He was one of the top goal scorers in the Eredivisie and across Europe last season, and he carried on the form into this season. And look, like I say, his output is brilliant. Yes, it's a fair question whether he'll make the transition up. I believe he will. And when we look at his stats, just to reassure you of what I was saying, he is, a top 95 percentile for most of the things you're looking for in terms of goal creating actions, in terms of shot creating actions, actual goals, non-penalty goals, XG, all of that stuff. What we got here? 98th percentile for non-penalty goals. XG, he's outperforming his XG, which is always reliable. Shots per game, per 90, 3.94 shots per game. 96th percentile. As we go down to the more deeper stuff, look, lots of green when it comes to shots on target, shots off target, percentages, conversions, average shot distance, shots from free kicks. Like I say, when it comes to put the ball at his feet, if it's leaving his foot to go towards the goal, he's one of the best at his level in European football. Passing, as I said, doesn't look great. If you're looking for a well-rounded player and you're just worried about the stats, doesn't look spectacular. But like I say, that's the system that he plays. He's not required to do it. But I promise you, I've seen enough footage on the Y-Scout tool. This guy has the ability to read the game. He's got a brilliant footballing IQ. He can come deep, and he likes to kind of pivot, swing, and put players in. When he does it, he usually does it right. But obviously, it doesn't happen that frequently. And that's why you're seeing a lot of red bars relative to other strikers around European football. It's the way that Feyenoord plays. So don't take this too much of a red flag. Let's get down to goal and shot creation. He's up there in the sort of top 25 percentile across the board for all of the things that he needs to do. But he is a finisher. He's a finisher most of the time. And like I say, you put the ball in the right area for him, and it's more often than not going to find the goal. You don't get, even at Dutch level, basically a goal or an assist 9 every 10 games, and also struggle in the last 10 games of the season, but yet still not have that affect your stats too bad unless you are a very, very talented finisher. He's also very good at carrying the ball, as I said. 80th percentile for progressive carries into the final third, 82nd percentile. Progressive passes received, 7.7 times per game. The Feyenoord team, when they bring the ball forward, they are looking for him more often than not, and he gets the ball, will run and have a shot. And like I say, most of the time it works out. Doesn't look like this stat is particularly good. 50% of aerial duels won, but he's actually very strong in the air. Seen enough evidence of it on the Y-Scout to feel confident that if we can put decent balls in the air, maybe he's not quite as successful as Richalison. Maybe that's not his overriding thing, but he's definitely no slouch when it comes to aerial strength. Strapping, strong guy, can pass the ball left and right. Good vision, good IQ. Would love to see it happen. The other player, if it's true that these guys were there to be kind of wined and dined or schmoozed by the Tottenham guys, maybe he was there to check out. He's got options to work for both. Maybe both teams are putting some effort into signing these guys. So he wanted to go and see who he would like to play for, and interesting game of football to digest. But anyway, he's not the only person that was at that game. Geertruida, another player. I've spoken about Geertruida a dozen times on this channel. All last summer, myself and Johnny were talking about his versatility as a player, and you can see valued at 32 million euros. He plays as a right back, a centre back. He can play right side, left side. He can play in the DM. He plays as a double pivot. If he does play in the DM with Mats Wiefer, a player who I have already done a video on him as part of the top 10 DMs that I think Tottenham should be looking at in the summer. Mats Wiefer was the number 10 choice on that list for me. It was in no particular order, but a player with unbelievable stats. And we can take a look at him if we need to on this video, but I'm not sure if I have time. But this guy, not so much as a single pivot six, more of a double pivot six. For me, look, I'm going to show you his stats in a minute. They look brilliant when it comes to passing. This guy is a brilliant passer of the ball. He's very calm under pressure. Physically, he's unbelievably fast. He's got wonderful recovery pace. Not quite as quick as Micky Van De Ven, but not too slow. He's about 6'1". He's very not stocky, but he's steady, sturdy, physically kind of very, very strong. And I think he will be able to transition to the Premier League level. Now, Arne Slot has apparently prioritized him as his first signing for Liverpool because Liverpool needs support in that kind of versatile department down the right-hand side. And he values his working relationship with Geertruida. So I don't necessarily think that if Tottenham are interested in him at all, then it would be we'd be maybe second in the priority list. But time will tell. But for me, before I get into the stats and before I tell you about the player, I'm just going to call it out. I'm not sure this guy makes a lot of sense for what Tottenham are looking for. Unless Emerson Royal is going and leaving in the summer, do we really need another player who can play right-sided centre-back and right-back? You've already got Emerson Royal, who's proven that he can do it to some level. You've already got Pedro Porro, who's a starting right-back. And, of course, you've got Radu Dragusin, who's a right-sided centre-back and or a right back in his time in Italy. And this so far, he's been shoehorned across to the left-sided centre-back role where he hasn't, in the minutes that he's had, done particularly well. I know Ange doesn't seem to care about sides, left or right. He thinks that if you're a centre-back, you can play other side. I don't share that thought personally, but that's just my opinion. I think that there is balance and you should have a left-footed, left-sided player. And I think that's where Tottenham, if we're looking for someone to come in to support the back line as a squad player or like a rotational player, but not necessarily going to spend the money to improve the first 11, then I think we should be looking at a left-sided player. That's why, as much as I really value Tosin Adarabioyo, I also don't really see the logic in spending money on him if he should be shoehorned into the left-back role. Another right-sided, right-footed player. It makes sense because he's a really great, really, really strong player. And the fact that he is a free transfer and he's homegrown. So it ticks a lot of boxes apart from the balance to the squad. Don't think it makes much sense. I'm not as big a fan of Lloyd Kelly, but he's free, he's homegrown, and he's left-footed, left-sided. And as I said before, I do think that Lloyd Kelly's pace and I do think that Lloyd Kelly's abilities on the ball are probably more suited to a Tottenham system than a kind of low block that you've seen most of the time from Bournemouth until this season, where Bournemouth has started to kind of be a little bit more progressive. And so the best parts of Lloyd Kelly's game would probably come alive in a higher line system if necessary. So I'm not against that transfer. And the fact that that's free, the fact that he's homegrown and he's left-footed, it makes a little bit more sense than going after a player like Geertruida, who very versatile for sure, very, very talented for sure. But I'm not entirely convinced he's good enough in a 6 to play the monster 6, the specific 6 that I think we need. I don't think we should be looking for versatility in that role. I think we should be looking for someone like an Edison, like a João Gomez, if you want to come down the tiers, a Paulinho at the very highest but unrealistic level, someone who could just sit in that 6 and be super aggressive. And one of the takeaways that I've seen about Geertruida, before I get into the stats, is look, his weaknesses, there's not that many weaknesses that I think you could call out. But if I am going to speak about him in any kind of regard where I'd say I'm not sure it's a good fit for Tottenham, is that I think the player is quite standoffish. I think he's quite passive. I think his natural tendency when he's playing right back or even at centre back is to stand off, to kind of, his instinct is to kind of cover the players when they break in transition. You know, you have to, again, remember, Feyenoord play with a high line. They have a lot of possession because they're the best team in Holland most of the time. So, you know, it's kind of like a Manchester City scenario where a lot of possession, or Tottenham, but what happens on the counter? What happens in transition? Well, Geertruida's natural tendency, as far as I've interpreted it, is to be more of a cover, like not to necessarily engage in the contact. And so depending on who he's playing with, that's either a good thing or a bad thing. Doesn't give away too many free kicks, doesn't give away too many yellow cards or bookings or penalties or anything like that. Because like I say, he's more of a, he gets involved and slows the play down in transition, but he's passive, I think is the right word, rather than kind of active and aggressive. So maybe sitting him to the right of Romero would be a good fit, because Romero can be the more, you know, aggressive side and, you know, like a yin and a yang, if that makes sense. In terms of his strengths, though, he's got a wonderful passing range, especially at the short and medium length. He's on the ball all the time for Feyenoord. I'm going to get his stats up for you so you can see it, so I'm not just talking absolute waffle. When we're looking at this particular line, we've got the fullbacks list and we've got centre-backs. We can compare him to both because he really is, you know, he plays 15 games a season, I think, this year as a centre-back, 15 as a right-back, and a few here and there as a DM. So take your pick how you think he would fit in. And you can see from the wagon wheel here that in terms of as a defender, he's very, very good with the passing, with the ball stuff. But in terms of the defensive actions, the stats don't support the fact that he's brilliant defensively. But again, you have to bake in that he is a centre-back for the team that doesn't do too much defending in the Eredivisie because they're so strong. On the ball, he scores a lot of goals, right? Look, here we go. You can see it. The actual per 90 stats are not particularly impressive, but compared to centre-backs and right-backs, all of this stuff is top 10 percentile for. Top 10 percentile for shooting as well. Passing, this is where obviously it's more relevant. Passes completed, 63 passes per game. 71 attempts at passing a game, 63 of them completed. So 96th percentile across the top 10 leagues, 98th on completed. Pass completion, 89, 90%. Very impressive, 99th percentile. Total passing distance. This guy is not afraid to knock it. It's more medium stuff. He's not putting the ball long too often. I think he takes the easy option. When I called him passive earlier, I'd also say he's someone that doesn't necessarily overcomplicate things. He's not going to be someone that's smashing the ball 45, 50 yards. Even if that's the right call, he'd rather make the simple choice, which is maybe a criticism of him. If it's something he's going to improve on, take more risks, be a bit more of a creator from that right back role or from the centre back role. But as a ball playing centre back, he's probably up there in terms of stats, maybe even statistically better than Christian Romero. And as I say, there's not many better ball playing centre backs in the league, in the Premier League, than Christian Romero, in my take. This guy, 99 percentile for pass completed on the medium length, and also a 92% completion rate for those length of passes. When it comes to long passes, that four times a game, 72nd percentile, he's only trying 6. So he's getting the percentages up there, 68% for long pass completion. So when he does hit it long, he knows what he's doing, right? But he just doesn't do it often enough. And again, that's because he doesn't overcomplicate things. But a really interesting player. Again, as you look at the actual defensive stats, though, again, you're going to see it here, 21st percentile. He's not putting that many tackles in. Again, stands off, doesn't want to make that sort of, doesn't want to engage, if you like. But again, you have to remember he's playing for Feyenoord. He's not playing for a team that is on the defensive back foot more a lot of the time. And if he was, maybe he'd be absolutely fine at handling it. It's just not something that I've seen enough of to be able to confirm for you. Possession stats, again, brilliant. He loves to carry the ball, 97th percentile, 50 times a game he's carrying the ball. 260 meters, 90th percentile for a fullback or for a centre-back. Very impressive. Progressive carrying distance, 160 meters every 90 minutes. Very, very good. Passes received. His teammates love giving the ball to him. 98th percentile. Not many centre-backs or fullbacks in the top 10 leagues are offered the ball as many times as he is. Again, it's because of the system, but that certainly gives you some level of insight into the confidence that the Feyenoord players have in him on the ball. And aerials one, he's not bad in the air, which is important. If you are going to bring him in as a DCM or as a centre-back or a fullback, do we have someone who can win aerial duels? Given how poor we are at set pieces, well, this guy is right up there in terms of percentage of aerials won, 64%. So 2 in every 3 aerial duels he goes into, he is completing them. Look, a really good player. But as I say, do Tottenham really need another player who can play as a right back when you've already got Emerson Royal? Do you really need another player who can come and play right-sided centre-back when you've already got Emerson Royal, Romero, and Dragic? I'm not sure this one makes sense. I don't know if he was here at the Tottenham game just in the company to Santiago Gimenez. Maybe Arsenal were looking at that role. Or do they need another centre-back and a right-sided player? Maybe, maybe not. I'm not sure about their transfer ambitions. I'm not sure this one is that logical for Tottenham. I think if we are going to go for a defensive player, as I said already, I think it's going to be someone who's more homegrown, and I hope it will be someone on the left foot, although Ange doesn't seem to prioritise left over right. Excuse me. Let me know your thoughts, guys. Geertruida, we've been speaking about the player. I really like him. Just do I like him for Tottenham? Is he on the top of my priority list? Probably not. Santiago Gimenez. Do you fancy Santiago Gimenez? Would you rather see us spend the money on a Benjamin Sesko? Would you rather see us go after someone like an Ivan Toney who's got Premier League experience? What about an Alex Isak? Do you see Tottenham's breaking the bank, going after Newcastle, seeing if Newcastle have got any issues with regards to FFP that can be leaned into? I'm not sure how that whole thing is set with them at the moment. There's a whole new rule around PSR that was approved in principle today. I'm going to do a video about that tomorrow because it's a 15-minute story anyway. But let me know your thoughts. Marcus Rashford, yes or no? For me, no. Sudokov, yes or no? For me, never going to happen anyway, but no. And of these two, I'd like Santiago Gimenez. I'd be happy if he came in. Still got question marks around the transition, but it's going to have to happen at some point if he's going to be the player that I think he can be. And Geertruida, I think he'll probably go to Liverpool. So, but it's in the news, so we bring it to you. That's your transfer news, views, and clues, guys. Let me know your thoughts. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always,